good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're based out of. Welcome to Coffee with MBA and Beyond. It's Paridhi here, co-founder of MBA and Beyond. I am here with Shantanu, founder of MBA and Beyond. We're going to be hosting this session targeted towards MIT, Haas, and Cornell essay questions. So before we begin, we'd like to understand between MIT, Haas, and Cornell, which schools are you targeting? Which round, which intake? And why did you pick these schools as your preferred schools? So if you could drop that in the chat box as we are waiting for some other people to join, we'd love to read and see which school should we prioritize in today's session. Shantanu, meanwhile, do you have anything to share?
Right. I think another thing, if all of you can tell us that are you targeting these schools because they're tech focused? And by tech, I also mean, obviously, if you're going to do MBA, you would be looking forward to product, right? Or it's not product, or you come from like a tech background, like a heavy tech background, like someone working, let's say, manufacturing motors, or someone working, in the EV industry. So yeah, guys would love to know that.
Yeah. So between MIT, Haas, and Cornell, which schools are you targeting? We still don't have any messages or anything coming up in the chat. So I don't know if we are really targeting the school or we're just hanging around here to listen to what Shantanu has to share with us today. So that could also very well be the reason, and that's completely all right. So you can help us understand if you're targeting any of these schools and the intake and the reason behind why you picked these schools. All right. I think I'm not
Yeah.
late. We are going to go in the sequence. I'm just going to drop the questions in here as we're going to take them up in sequence for all of you to read. So we're going to start with MIT essay question, which is quite interesting. Also, again, like I really like these philosophical and introspective questions, and it's one of them. So the first essay question over there is the world that shaped you. How has the world you come from shaped who you are today? So Shantanu, maybe if you could give some inputs on how should we tackle this specific question. And yeah.
Right. Um, Again, very, very interesting question, right? Not boring like a goals essay, but a very interesting question. And I think what you guys first of all need to do is put up a filter, which is MIT, right? And most probably you guys are targeting it because you're interested in tech, and not just product, but tech, you know, as well. So really need to go down to your childhood, or a connecting point where what has been your motivation of doing whatever you're doing, right? And we understand it can very well happen that when you were 10, you were not sure that you want to do an MBA, or you didn't even know what MBA is. But still there is a direction, right? For instance, there's an applicant who says, I was a kid who, so whenever a remote control car would come in my house, I was a kid who would straight away go and open it up. I mean, I love the way the car was designed, but I want to know what's inside, what's driving it, what's the engine. And this particular interest of mine had driven me always. And then in my professional journey, I sort of realized that I'm more of a back end guy than a front end guy, though I have full respect for front end people, but I'm really inclined towards building the powerhouse. So yeah, guys. I mean, this is one of the stories. But it's not the story that I've had brought in today for MIT. But just thought to let you guys know, give you give you perspective, right? So it really needs to start with, because it's the world that shape you, right? So you really need to show that how you in this particular setup in this matrix are there, how it has influenced you, what influences have you taken, on what have you, I mean, what could you feel, what have you taken, and what are you acted upon, and then how it has shaped you who you are today. This is exactly what they're trying to want, they're trying to ask, right? So the essay that I picked up for this is, there was this guy who grew in the energy capital of the country this person is in, and very interesting candidate actually. And then talks about that since childhood I have seen how um, coal turns into electricity, because I lived around that area. My father used to work in one of the power plants, and he would take me along multiple. I mean, they would have family days, so I would also go along, and then he would give me a tour, and I was always fascinated that how coal is turning this into, right, energy. And then he said later I grew up, and then I also realized that instead of coal, now we have motors, we got EVs. And for the love of energy, for the love of how energy transcends, I picked up this particular sector. Right. Now, again, guys, I don't want to read the entire essay, but yeah, I hope you get the gist, right? I think I gave two examples, one for the backend, one for this guy, right? One from the product perspective, one from like tech perspective.
Okay.
And then this guy talks about how he had pitched um, very good. I think it was a project on superchargers. So how do you reduce the size of the superchargers? And he had pitched it to the wife of the prime minister of that country who was leading the effort during that time. So yeah, that's what it is. Any questions, anyone?
All right. So I'm just summarizing what you just said, Shantanu, and I think the key tips here are it's important to go back to childhood a little bit, try to figure out the nuances and the direction from there, and then trying to figure out the connection to what we do currently. It could be either a link to our function, our sector, industry, domain, anything. But yeah, I mean, how we can relate, something that we're picking as a hooking thing in our story to relate to what we do today. Any questions, guys, on what we've just summarized? If not, we're going to move on to the next question. Shantanu has given you two examples. One was relating to the current function, linking it to the childhood. And the other one was, of course, linking it to the childhood, but to the current sector. So that could be one of the ways that you can figure it out. So these are just two ways that we have demonstrated how you could think about your stories. Anybody applying to MIT over here for round two? You can raise your hands and then we'd know. Okay, I think that kind of justifies why there are no questions coming in as well. All right, anybody applying to Haas? Because we're moving on to Haas right now. Berkeley Haas, anyone? Silicon Valley, anyone? Product managers, future. Okay, all right.
And then I'll actually wrap it quickly. Yeah.
Yes, we're going to jump on
I'm
to.
also a little under the weather, guys, today. And
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't have questions, yeah, I can
Yeah, okay, Aditya.
quickly answer.
Aditya is going for Haas, so we'll just move on to Haas. And what are your short-term, long-term career goals? Again, like one of the boring questions, but yes, from Haas's point of view, Shantanu, if you can. Okay, Aditya is applying to Haas and Mark is applying to Haas. So we have two people. So I think, Shantanu, we can really spend some time on Berkeley Haas now. What are your short-term and long-term career goals? Boring bits, sorry, guys. And how will an MBA from Haas help you achieve those goals? Like any other question, but yeah, Shantanu, of course, you can make it specific to Haas.
Yeah, I think the problem that arises with a 300-word goal essay is the moment you're going to put down your goal, it's going to take around 50, 60 words, right? And then obviously you got to put in how Haas is going to help achieve the goals, right? So you got to talk about Haas, flatter them, right? That is going to take like 150 words. So you're done with 200. Now you only got 100 more words left, right? Had it been 350 or let's say 500, then it would have given a lot of space to talk about motivation and also talk about the sort of achievements that you had, right? But the biggest thing that you really need to do over here is the collinearity. And what do I mean by collinearity is your current work experience, if it is point A, you know, your goals, point B, and then how MBA specifically has is going to help you achieve that. That is point C. So these 3 points need to be collinear. And what do we really mean by collinearity? I think it's also there in GMAT quant, if I'm not mistaken, it should be there. Yeah. Is that if 3 points are collinear, it means that they're lying on the same straight line. Any 2 points, you can draw a straight line, but if 3 points are collinear, it means that it's the same straight line. And this straight line is nothing but the direction that you want to take. So goals essay is, guys, a vector quantity, where you have magnitude in terms of these 3 points, and then eventually you also have a direction, right? Um, those who did not have physics in their, during the school, so guys, vector quantity is something which has a magnitude and a direction. So yeah, here the direction, how collinear you are gives a clear direction, and that is the biggest challenge over here, right? Um, and obviously it's Haas. So again, I think most of you, instead of tech, you guys be focusing on product, right? Or had it been Anderson again, you guys would be focusing more on product, right? But the example that I brought in today is from a guy who had got through Haas last year and is from social impact background, you know, um, and um, and the direction that we took was that all right, we I think you guys would remember I said 150 plus 52, so you only got 100 more words left. So the direction that we took with those 100 words was, let's just talk about the impressive things applicant has done, and we stuffed it in. You know, let me just quickly open the essay. And it goes like, in the last 3 years, working closely on climate change mitigation has profoundly shaped my perspective. And then talks about collaborated with 10,000 farmers, increase farmers' income by 40% while reducing carbon emissions by 50,000 MT. That's huge. And then talks about, it was a turning point for me, realizing climate change is not just an environmental, but also a social imperative. And then post MBA, my goal is this, long term, my goal is that, and to achieve my goals, I need a strong foundation business and climate solutions. And then we talk about different courses, and we talk about different professors. Another key thing over here is, you really need to be specific over here about Haas or any other B school. Let's say if it's a goal question, right? And a good way of checking this, the litmus test is that if you just do Control F in your document and replace the B school name by other B school, is it still saying the same thing? You know, and if it does, then you haven't put in enough effort. So you need to make it specific uh, towards Haas, and that's the litmus test. Control F. Right? Any questions, guys?
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. And then, of course, as I'm asking, I mean, everybody can chime in, especially Aditya and Mark, if you have any as well. So I heard, just summarizing, collinearity, of course, the current experience has to tie into the vision that you have post MBA, both long term, short term. which has to be justified with the school, and then we have to be specific about the school. Just summarizing that. Well, I also heard that, when you're talking about goals, you have to talk about numbers and quantify them. So my question remains, and that always remains, when I read some essays, I do read some essays which talk about, a vision which is pretty vague, while some candidates go very deep into explaining numbers around it. Like, I really want to decentralize energy for 2 million people in this country, in this particular region. And that's why I have done A, B, C things, and this is what I want to do, and this is how house is going to contribute. So my question is, do you think quantifying things really makes a difference in this particular essay? Because of course, a lot of schools ask this question, and I mean, I have significantly seen differences in the kind of essays that we pull off. But yeah, I just want to understand from your point of view, for everybody to understand over here.
It indeed helps. But the moment you quantify the impact, I mean, see, there are pros and cons. If you're going to quantify the impact, it just showcases that you know what you're doing. You know the success metric on which you're working, and then simultaneously, if you put in numbers, then it also makes you compare. I mean, like, you can be compared with others. Like someone saying I've increased the revenue from A to B, and someone saying I from A to D.
Yeah.
And D is highly greater than B, right? So yeah, and I mean, you got to take care of those nuances. Also, I think when we work with applicants, I think we consultants also bring in our own biases, right? Like, I tend to be more on the analytical side. So, but I think in the first 2 to 3 years, I identified that I think I'm pushing everyone to go in that direction, right? But then the moment I realized this, I started giving applicants a little more freedom, you know, um, into writing in their whatever way they can show impact. And we've also done essays where they were really less numbers,
Yeah.
um, quantifiable numbers. But again, it's more about your understanding of what you are doing. Your understanding, how clear are you in terms of what you're doing, and with how much clarity can you actually explain it to the adcom? Because how do you get an interview invite? Do you get an interview invite when adcom reads it and adcom's like, yeah, this is possible what this person is saying, and sounds employable, you know, and just looks plausible. Let's call this person, right? Um, so yeah, I think everything then boils down to this particular fact. I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah.
I'm a little low on energy uh, today. So I
Yeah.
hope
No.
I've answered the question.
Yes, you have. Any more questions, guys? You have. So I'm just summarizing this for all of us. We've got some key tips over here. Definitely, your narrative has to be collinear when you're talking about current experience to short-term to long-term goal, and why MBA from Haas has to fit in. It needs to be specific to Haas, like Shantanu said. You can do your control F thing, like we were talking about, and compare your essays. If it's really falling in, like if you see a Venn diagram and if there's too much of an overlap, then it does not make sense that you have made it very specific to Haas. So try to make it very specific and quantifying the impact in goals if possible. Having said that, may not be the only approach, but yes, like what Shantanu says, that of course there are various approaches, but I personally find that fascinating. Again, it depends, like how you're putting your story out there, because sometimes, as Shantanu mentioned, quantifying your impact might also dilute your application in the competition if you belong to an overrepresented pool, because you might have impacted, let's say, 100 people, somebody might have impacted 1,000. So, and you might have had 2 promotions, somebody else might have had 3 fast track promotions. So you may want to see whether or not it is making sense to quantify the impact, quantify it, but also figure out the differentiator for yourself. Maintain that differentiation in your application, because just the numbers cannot be your differentiators. Sometimes we confuse it with that as well. So your numbers are not your differentiators. Start believing that. That's the foundation of your application. And then bring in the clarity of whatever you're putting out there with numbers and current experiences so that you have supporting evidence to suggest that whatever you're going to be doing, you are definitely going to be doing it. So that brings in a lot of clarity. So I think
Yeah.
that any other points, Shantanu, you'd like to?
Yeah, just to add over here, like the example that I have in front of me, this only has three numbers in it.
Yeah.
And I also remember in R1, there was an applicant where there were only two numbers in it. And they are successful guys, by the way. Essays. Yeah. It's only two numbers in there. And I've put in like six numbers as well, seven
Mhm.
numbers as well. So yeah.
All right. Thanks, Shantanu. Any questions around Haas? Mark, Aditya, specifically you guys, since you're targeting Haas. All right. Meanwhile, how many of us are applying to Cornell round two? Anyone applying to Cornell round two? January deadline? All right, we have one candidate. Okay, we're going to move on to Cornell then if we don't have any more questions. Essay one, the unique trait that, again, I like uniqueness questions. MBA, post MBA goals questions are really boring. This is the real stuff, guys. This is what makes your application interesting. So anytime you see, an application where you have a lot to talk about, but they ask you about your uniqueness, purpose in life, and all of that, those are the kind of applications worth reading. So, okay, essay one, the unique trait that defines me. What is something unique about you that others will remember you by? And how will this trait help you contribute to and engage with the Cornell MBA community? Shantanu.
Yeah. Um, Again, interesting question, uniqueness. And again, if you read the question, they're talking about help you contribute to and engage with the Cornell MBA community, specific to Cornell. So a litmus test would also come in over here, right? Whereas if you go to MIT, MIT, where's the question? MIT said, the world that shaped you, how has the world you come from shaped who you are today? They're not asking you to put in MIT specific things over there. So now it's up to you. But even if you don't, right, it is fine. But we would still recommend at least put one over there, right? But here, your litmus test, your essay should pass the litmus test of the find and replace. Just replace it with any other Bschool. You got to find the unique trait. I mean, before that, you really got to see how can you contribute. And I think there's no word count over here. It's a 350 word essay. And your past actions, what you have done in the past, is a pretty good indicator of what you're going to do in the future. So dedicate space to support your claim that when you're saying I'm going to do this, right? I've done this, I've done this and I'm going to do that, right? So you need to dedicate some space of about telling what have you done already in life, right? And that it could either be through community service, it could either be, let's say, an insight you've gotten while working, and then you're like, I would really want to, or I'm a subject matter expert on this particular thing. I would really want to share the knowledge through marketing club or through tech club and blah blah, a bunch of clubs. Um, Um, and with these bunch of contributions, because of 350 word essay, you can easily put in two, easily, right? But if you can squeeze in a third, don't push it. But I mean, if you can squeeze in a third, that would be great, you know. And and all these three or two, however many you decide, if they have a common theme, that's the trait. You can turn it into an adjective then. There's a theme, and then you convert that theme into an adjective, and then you say it's my trait at the structural level um, of this essay. Um, I had a very interesting applicant over here where the applicant is not from the heavy tech background, but is from e-commerce. It doesn't want to be a product manager, even, wants to be a PMM, product marketing manager. There's difference between the two. And yeah, talking about how, I mean, these days, there are a few terms like inclusivity, empathetic leader, right? ChatGPT throws like bunch of them. So I generally stay away from these. Um, but inclusivity was a theme in her profile. Um, so I could convince her to not use others, but inclusivity it was the theme. So had to talk about it, you know. And then I tried to say it in different ways rather than, um, just putting it the way ChatGPT says it. But inclusivity in a single word is just explaining and if you're going to take four words to explain the same thing without using the same word, you're also eating into the words, and then also it's not efficient. So we ended up using the term inclusivity, guys. I tried my best not to use that, but eventually we ended up using it. And it goes like, what people remember most about me is my instinct to create safe, culturally aware spaces, places where people feel understood, not just included, right? And then pros, a professional example where how in one of the marketing campaigns, applicant understood that you can't just translate into different languages, like the same thing you translate into different languages and you feel that culturally they would understand. I mean, they would also understand in that language the cultural nuance behind it, right? So that's a wrong assumption. And then this she ties up with inclusivity that now you're not inclusive. I mean, if you have to be inclusive, then you really gotta think it's not just about translating, it's also about is it gonna make sense culturally to them. So that's how the inclusivity came in over here, right? And then the other example was yeah, she had also built a community um, for divorced women where she talks about how people generally feel after getting divorced, they sort of get cut off from a society and they don't feel belonged. So to bring in the feeling of belongingness, again, inclusivity, right? Um, and then I think we threw third example as well in here. Oh no, we went ahead with two. We went ahead with two. And then we use this space to talk about how with these learnings, the applicant is gonna create impact and is going to contribute to the learning community by specifically pointing out things like the Johnson Marketing Association, by hosting culture, um brand strategy, Women's Management Council, Women in Business, Big Red League, Johnson's Peer Support Network. So the bunch of things that get thrown inside. But applicant did the research um, that how this is going to be. And one of the schools, I think, was Darden, where where applicant figured out a dormant um, club, um, which was sort of shut down 2 years ago, and then comes up and says, "Hey, this is perfectly aligned with what I do, so I'm gonna make it go live again. I'm gonna, you know, bring it back to the life." So, which was beautiful. Which was actually beautiful, and this actually takes effort, guys. I mean, you need to speak with current students, with alums, um, right? Try to understand the culture inside. How does how is student life inside? Where do you guys hang out? What do you guys do together? What sort of competitions you guys participate in? Right? Is there something in this club which is missing? And every year, by the way, guys, every year every B school has a flavor of the year. It stays for the entire year, and everything would revolve around that flavor. sustainability. Sometimes it could be so they keep on changing it. So another advice over here is try to understand the flavor of the year, and generally that happens when the new session starts. It's not like the year is ending, so they're going to change the flavor of the year. Um, and also try to understand if you can get the information what are the contenders for the next year's flavor of the year, right? And the clubs that you are looking to be a part of. Is it anything that the club is missing, right? How can you contribute? Um, so yeah, both the things together, how can you contribute, and then culturally diving into it. Like Colombia asked this question really very well, co-optimally, you know, you do this community thing. Here they what they're saying is engage with the Cornell MBA community. So both the aspects, cultural and how by being on the ground you can help the learning community. By being on the ground, you can help the club, and also how in the classroom you can help the community. So yeah, if you can include these aspects, it would be great. And then on top of it, if you can tie it up with a unique trait, that's the cherry, guys, on the cake.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Shantanu. Okay, I have a couple of questions, and meanwhile, of course, like if Matthias, you have any question, you can also ask, drop it in the chat. So I could sense there are some key tips, of course, summarizing here, as you've said, that we have to dedicate space to supporting your claims, of course. Like there have to be some anecdotes. I mean, no, in no particular order, of course, they can come in later. They can start the essay can start with them. Some evidences, anecdotes such as insights on the job, some community service, some personal evidences, anything that we can bring in. So there has to be something to support our claim. And then you mentioned that there has to be at least two contributions that we talk about, which can have ideally a common theme. And of course, third, if we can squeeze in personal or professional, any examples we can bring in. And then we need to also talk to current students to understand the culture, the values, and understand the flavor of the year. A few questions here. When we talk about the contributions that we are going to make in the school, is there is there a dedicated number that we shouldn't exceed, or, at least like I could only contribute to, let's say, one club, and I only talk about that one specific club in depth, versus there is another candidate who talks about five different activities. Is there a balance?
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
is there something that you
Get your point.
recommend? That should
Get your
we not
point.
put points, or should we go deeper into one thing?
That's a very good question. I would have expected one of the our participants to ask this, but it's a brilliant question. Um, I don't think you can go beyond three. Um, okay, Matthias, I'll get to that. I don't think we should go beyond three. Because again, it's not about the quantity. I mean, it's more about convincing the reader, right? That what I'm saying makes sense, right? And for which you need real estate of words. I've done this, I'm going to spend words over there, and that's why I'm saying I'm going to do this, right? So you're spending words over here, right? Which is limited, and you have a constraint of 350. So, and then simultaneously, but so if you pick two activities, right? Um, let's say you have put in 125 each, so you got 250, right? And then you also need to define the unique trait. If that takes another 40, 50 words, so you're already sitting at 290, 300 words, right? If you just have to bring the third one, then it really means that 125 words on each activity that you were spending, you're going to reduce that to 100, right? So now you get 50 more words, and then 50 more, you get 100. There's no way you can put in. I mean, I wouldn't recommend even going ahead with four. Even at Fuqua, which gives us 500 words, we stick to three. We don't go to four. None of our candidates have ever written four over there. You're in mute, Paridhi.
All right. Yes, I understand. You can now answer Matthias' question.
Matthias? Flavor of the year is let's say Bschool is going to come in and say that this year we dedicate it to sustainability or social impact, or let's say climate change, right? Could be women in business, right? Gender equity. Now, what's going to happen is that during this entire, all the clubs, right, are also going to be focusing towards that. So just try to see it in a way that your company in a year has, let's say, one mission or one objective which company needs to follow for the entire, and that is a success metric that your company need to move apart from revenue. I mean, obviously, everything falls under revenue, you know. And now in each quarter, you would have um, different goals, right, or different KPIs. But all these four KPIs and all these quarters are focusing towards that one main thing. And that one main thing, the way you work in your company, the objective, right, is what flavor of the year in a B school is. I hope, Madhyas, I've answered the question and you could understand.
Okay, next question we have Mark's. How do we find out? I think that's what he's asking.
Current students, yeah,
Yeah, talking to the current students, not alums, current students, Mark,
yeah.
because they'd be able to tell you exactly what's going on in the school. So you could talk to them and then coach them. All right. Just one thing here, Shantanu, because I understand we've done a lot of sessions on uniqueness, but maybe if you could summarize it for, the audience today, that while we've talked about the how we are going to talk about contribution. So my question remains on the first tip that I've documented here for Cornell, that we are going to dedicate space to support our claim, which could be evidences, anecdotes. I'm assuming they are also going to encapsulate the uniqueness we are going to be talking about. So my question is, how should a candidate, like, how should I identify what is unique about me?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's a very good question. All of you are unique, actually. All of you are. It's just that you don't know. Because everyone tries to follow, um, same path, right? I want to be management consultant, right? So then all of you try to align your things towards that particular goal. I mean, it's equivalent to I don't know if you guys have watched the video of this song, "Another Brick in the Wall" by Pink Floyd, um, where they take all the students on a conveyor belt and all of them are going to school, and then before going to the school they had different faces, but after that all of them have same faces, right? Um, And yeah, I mean, I think the uniqueness comes through the expression and the way you express, and that is one thing which, like when I work with applicants, I generally do. Initially, I'm not boxing you. I'm not asking you to answer any essay or anything. I'm just asking you a question, and you go and express yourself. And through that expression, I get to know your voice, I get to know your tone, and I also get to know your uniqueness. And it actually takes a little more time than it's not as easy as what I just said over here. So but it takes a little more time where very carefully, um I have to guide you in a way where I'm not first of all throwing any sample at you, so that because now the moment I'm going to throw sample at you, you're going to get anchored, and then you're going to start behaving in that way, right? But guide you in a way where you really express yourself. I think expression is the term for me over here. I find uniqueness through their expression.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah.
Shantanu. So
And
Matthias,
if you have to find uniqueness, then I think what you really got to do is express yourself and then read that content from the perspective of a third person. Don't read it as if you have written it. Read it as if someone else wrote it, and then analyze it. You will find it. But generally, what happens this way, then people are like, ah, man, I'm bad over here. And 90% of the times where people feel that I am, hey, this is how I'm different. Oh no, I mean, this is not going to look good. This is exactly where your uniqueness is fading. You see it, but then you're like, oh no, I mean, I got to be like them. So yeah.
I think, I mean, that's where the whole idea of sample essays goes against the idea of how do you, how should you pull off your uniqueness? And that's, I mean, these are some few of the questions where I feel you definitely need a second opinion, somebody who's looked at thousands of applications, because otherwise you might just end up creating another version of someone who had applied and probably even gotten rejected or accepted last year. And if they did get accepted, then you're not getting accepted for the same narrative this year for sure. So you have to be very careful about that. We'll take up Matthias, and Matthias has another question, Shantanu. If possible, maybe elaborate the part you talked about team. Did you talk anything about team? I don't remember it now. Matthias,
No,
unmute yourself. You can ask because I think we've lost the context.
I
You,
don't think I've talked about team.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah,
please.
go ahead, remind me.
Mm.
No, it's like talk about team because when you share with the impact that you have on people on teams, like how can you if we should express our impact, give examples in our work, in our friends, and how we impact when we are in a group of people.
Okay. I think,
Okay.
If that would be.
yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's a separate question than the ones over here, Matthias, right? But would love to take it up. Yeah, if you can showcase impact um, uh, through your teamwork or by saying that you led a particular team professionally and personally, that would be great. That actually would be great. I mean, I had an applicant writing goals essay where she went about saying that she worked at BCG pre-MBA as an analyst. Um, and I think what she said was that there was a project that came to me um, where we had to increase the rating that would you want to, would you come back to work at BCG when people were leaving BCG? And they had to increase this percentage. And then she says that, I mean, I was not, no one asked me to lead that, right? And in a company like BCG where they are handling so many clients, right? This also seems like a futile project, but the applicant writes that, it was really important to me. And then when I picked it up, and then when I started talking about and whoever I talked to in the company, and everyone was motivated to push this number up, and I just naturally took the lead. It just happened that to whomsoever I went to, everyone wanted to contribute in it, and then overall we increased the number from this to this. Does it help, Matthias?
Yes, this will help. I was looking for that kind of example to understand better. Thank you.
Right. No worries, no worries. And just one last thing in it, if it helped, that the closing sentences for that paragraph, when we were talking about this impact, was that I also learned um, when people are aligned towards a single cause, um, sky is the limit. You can really push whatever. Sky is the limit. Right? Period. Okay.
All right. Any more questions? About any schools, guys? If not, then we can wrap up the session. We're going to be hosting another session for those targeting European schools. Jan intake is what we're going to be talking about, INSEAD, IMD, and I think HEC on 11th of December. So yeah, I mean, keep an eye for that on the community if you're a part of the community. If not, you can always check it out on the website. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. All right, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Enjoy. All the best. Bye.
Best everyone with your applications. Bye-bye.